This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. Magazine publisher and entrepreneur Judith Mancini is sharing captivating conversations with experts in their field about the latest trends in our ever-changing world to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Judith Mancini today will spark your interest and inspire you to lead your best life ever. And now, here's Judith.
Hey, how are you, everyone? Thank you for joining me on Judith Mancini today. Well, it's a big news day, I'll tell you that. And it kind of fits into what we're discussing today. Where do I start? The economy, abortion, boys on girls teams, illegal immigration, crime. They're all in the news today. So let's get busy. This is part of the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. This is the wise portion. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to keep trying to update you on what's happening in the election, because I know you can't all be sitting in front of the television listening to the different stations like Fox and CNN and all the different regular network news and all. So I'm going to try to give you a little wrap up of what things are being said. One of the first things I want to say today is that I'm kind of looking at the television for a breaking news thing. What I want to talk about just quickly is Israel trying to protect itself and people in Gaza and still maintaining its sovereignty. So they did go in and drop bombs and missiles in Gaza, and unfortunately there were some civilians that were killed, but that unfortunately happens in wars, and I feel badly for anybody. I don't care what side they're on. Some of these people are innocent over in the Gaza Strip. And some of them are hiding there trying to do nasty things. So one of them that supposedly was killed, that they're trying to verify with DNA and fingerprints and all of that, is Yahya Sinwar, Hamas's leader. He is the last of the three people who were leading Hamas. Hamas is the one who captured and killed and tortured all of those people on October 7th. He was the mastermind behind it. They are reporting from over in that area that he was killed, but they do need to verify it. So I haven't heard the verification of it yet. We're all pretty sure, and that would be a wonderful thing. I never want people to die, but when you're in war, it's best to go after the leader and get rid of them when they are the head of a state that is so grotesque in treating other countries and other citizens of other countries, how they kidnap them, torture them, kill them, behead them, burn the babies in front of parents, and burn the parents in front of babies. It was a horrible thing on October 7th, and we're 10 days past that, and we're still all grieving and shuddering, and I'm asking my God to please let us know that we will be safe from at least one of these horrible people. So that is the headlining news, but how could you not think that Harris and Trump are not the other headlining news? Well, the news people are trying to tell you some facts that have come out one of the facts that came out was that the FBI crime statistics came out and said that crime was lowered from 2022 to 2023. But actually, what happened in the revised report, now somebody explained to me how the FBI can't get it straight in the first place. Aren't they our head law enforcement agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation? So actually, instead of going down by 2.1%, talking about crime now, it actually, in their revised report, went up to 4.1% of crime happening all over the United States. This is just craziness. And a second report that came out today was a committee of, I believe, 4 people. I think that's it, 4 people. Now, remember, the Secret Service is under Mayorkas' domain of what he controls and suggests and gives reports on. Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security. So there is the Secret Service. They came out with a report that said, basically, don't quote me, but basically go and read it yourself. They say that the Secret Service is incompetent. Well, of course, we know that the woman who was put in there because of diversity, she resigned. But I'm personally calling for the resignment of Mayorkas, the Director of Homeland Security, Secretary of Homeland Security, whatever his full title is. Get him out of there. He just lies. He's lied about everything. Now, in this report, there's a lot of questions of why they didn't go and talk to the shooter, why they saw him climbing up there and never asked, why they didn't have people in the water tower. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. And the conclusion is there will probably be another attempt like there was in Butler, PA. How disgusting is that? That's what they have to say? No conclusions about how they need to change it, how they can improve it, how they can improve the safety of our candidates running for presidency in the life of a former president? Not to say anything about the people who were there cheering them on, trying to decide whom to vote for. This is a travesty of justice and safety. I get so upset over these things. I start screaming and talking so loudly. My husband says, "Can you please tone it down?" Because I'm talking to the television, talking to myself. I'm talking to him, but he's tuning me up because all I do is complain about what's going on in our country right now. It's a good thing we go out once in a while because I don't scream in restaurants. So that's what's happening with that. Where is this attempt going to be? Well, guess what? One already happened on the golf course. So how many more will there be? They didn't say there was a specific one, but you can bet that these people who wish harm to the United States have all sorts of people running around the United States now that have been sent here to terrorize us and to plant bombs and to have guns that they can put back together, and they brainwash them if they're from here. They've brainwashed them and told them that they had to go do these dastardly things when they sneak across the border. That's the only way they could get in. They brainwash them and say, this is not a good place. You're going over there to make it a good place. They may not come with weapons, but you can bet there are people in this country already who have snuck in and have gone to the underground to put the bombs together, to put the rifles together. I am not a conspiracy theorist, but if a committee who should have been protecting the former president and candidate for the presidency, if he was shot and then was shot at again, it's not a conspiracy anymore. It's an actual fact. So that's in the news today. What else did they tell us this morning? I was just talking to our engineer, and we were discussing the Fox interview with Kamala Harris by Bret Baier. Now, you don't have to be a fan of Fox News because they've taken out bits and pieces and run them on all the other news stations. Well, what kind of person is she that she's running for the presidency and she can't answer questions? She can't think on her feet, so to speak. She shouldn't have to. She knows what questions are going to be asked. For goodness sakes, they're asked of Trump all the time. She can just go watch one of his interviews and know what she's going to be asked. Where is her team that is supposed to be supporting her and giving her answers? Or does she not have a good memory that she can memorize some? Oh, I forgot. She was raised in a middle-class family. I forgot she does have some things memorized. Well, she was asked this one question that I thought was very telling. She was asked by Bret Baier, when was it that you started seeing the decline of mental acuity? These are not his words, these are my words, of President Joe Biden. When did you start feeling that he might be suffering the signs of dementia, that he was having a hard time remembering things and making decisions? Her answer, I never felt like that. He made decisions and they were put through and he followed up on them. Okay, so you know what I'm saying? They discussed the 25th Amendment, which means that you are incapacitated and cannot perform the duties of the presidency of the United States. Well, we're in an election cycle here. It's coming up very close in about 2 weeks. And this didn't happen that long ago. What were they going to do? They had to get him out of there. So perhaps he is declining. It seems he is, except when he gives the State of the Union and a couple other things where I've never seen anything like it. I know they can give you drugs to pump you up so that your brain functions in different circumstances, so that you can remember things and you can act a little more spry than shuffling along and hanging your head and stumbling up airplane stairs, getting lost at the Easter egg hunt. There were definite signs, but now Kamala is saying she never saw anything. Okay, then she is the head of the coup. The coup is no longer a healthcare mental problem to get Biden out of office. This was a staged coup by some of the people in the administration, including Harris, removing a man illegally from the presidency. A coup. Last I checked, that's against the law. It's actually treason. Now, nobody is telling me what to say. These are my thoughts. So don't go getting all crazy and telling everybody I'm spouting stories that aren't true, because they are true. Everybody knows that he was incapable of making a speech and finding the door to walk off the stage. Everybody knows that. So Kamala comes out and says he was quite capable of making decisions, and now he's over in Germany or someplace trying to get them to be with the United States, basically against Israel. He says he wants Germany to step up and help the Israelis. Well, I sincerely doubt that's going to happen. There's something strange going on here, and it's, excuse my language, but I'm going to say it. It's a hell of a lot deeper and more nefarious than the man just stepping back. He should not be on an airplane going to Germany and meeting with world leaders. No, 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 no. But what is Kamala going to do if she can't talk in a great interview with Brett Baer and answer some questions that have been asked of her in different manners all this time, and she can't answer them, and she loses her temper and starts speaking over Brett Baer and not letting him continue and putting her hand out. Stop, I'm going to continue talking. I'm not finished yet. Excuse me again, she's not capable of being president of the United States. You need some diplomacy. You need to be polite. She didn't need to show her so-called power. She is not the president of the United States now. And the president of the United States would not do this unless he was in an enormous meeting that demanded his attention or her attention to a national security problem. They asked for the number of questions to be, excuse me, my phone is coming through my computer. She and her team asked that certain questions be asked and other questions not asked. They cut down the time of talking to 20 minutes. Now, it's darn hard to give an interview in 20 minutes. And then on top of that, she comes in 15 minutes late, like Miss Gotrocks. Who the hell does she think she is? She may be the vice president of the United States, but she certainly doesn't comport herself in that way. And let me ask you another question. Why doesn't she ever put a dress on or a skirt? I think it's a little weird. Women still do wear those things, dresses and skirts. A lot of women wear pants. I wear pants too. But every single day? Ugh. And where does she get off wearing necklaces that are $70,000 approximately and all this other jewelry? I have not seen any first lady who has worn that expensive of jewelry every day or in public places where they're giving speeches. It's not done. It's not even done in high society. It isn't done when you are raising money for charity or something like that, unless it's a black tie ball and you're expected to bring out all your jewels like an inauguration ball. You don't go around talking to people with that kind of jewelry on. You just don't do it. She thinks she has some of these ploys like when they had the debate. I know, I've been a woman in business. I watched her. She came out to the podium and she walked across before Trump could even get to the podium with her hand outstretched like, man, I'm in control, not you. But guess what? She wasn't. She shouldn't try to be something she isn't. She should first learn her script. Okay, so I'm done. I'm done talking about Kamala and how she can't be interviewed and how she doesn't have any policies, that she says she's going to do this and do that. But in the time she's been in as vice president, she must have had a lot of extra time to work on these things that she thinks she's come up with to make our country better. What? What was she doing? You know, she had extra time. She never did go to the border until recently. And then she sat in a lawn chair away from it so she could have an interview. Do you think that those border patrol people wanted to talk to her? She didn't have anything to say to them. How hot does it get out here? You must get really hot. I'm sure those are the questions she asked. Okay, so that's my thoughts on interviewing Kamala Harris. We're going to get into some of the other stuff later, but also on today's news, I read that North Carolina in the last couple of days in the mountains is experiencing snow. That means it's very cold. Do you know that they are still struggling to do recovery in the hills and the mountains of North Carolina? It was so bad that they haven't been able to get up there everywhere. They're still missing at least 92 people that haven't been accounted for. So I'm asking you, please keep these areas that were devastated by the hurricanes, keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And pray for the people that are trying to rescue them and pass the food out and help them clean up the debris and all of that. Keep them all in your prayers. Thank you. Well, okay. Let me give you a little briefing on some of the things that are going on in the election and what you should expect. Just so you know, our country, I know I have people listening that know all about elections and what the rules are and this and that and everything else. And in California, you should have received your ballots by now. And there's many different ways to vote: by mail, drop off in a secure box location, go to a polling place that is open for early voting to turn in your ballot. Did I say vote by mail? Of course. And of course, you can vote on the day of the election. And in California, it used to be 7 to 7. I don't know what it is now. They seem to keep changing it in different locations or by the state. So I'm not quite sure what it is. So check with that. If you don't have your ballot, you can go online and have them trace your ballot. And the same thing is true after you turn your ballot in. You can look and see if you tell them where you voted, how you voted, meaning mail in, ballot box in, or what have you, excuse me. And they will track your ballot for you and tell you, yes, we received it, and yes, it has been marked that you voted. I don't know if they're counting the mail-in ballots, etc., if they're counting those right now or if they're leaving them to count for later in a secure place. I'm going to check in and let you know next week. Remember now that no matter what the polls say, that Trump may be up by 2 or 3 points and Kamala may be up in this other state by the same amount, and it's going back and forth. The population is not counted. The popular vote is not what decides the election. What the popular vote does is give the state the number of electoral votes for the electoral college that will elect the president of the United States. So when you're watching the election at night, they'll have a count up there. You need 270 votes in the Electoral College to win the election. And when you're watching it, no matter which network or cable news, whatever you're watching, they'll have a running count of it up there. And they'll also have a map, I would assume all of them do, of red or blue states. Obviously, red is Republican, blue is Democrat. So the electoral votes are different and go by population in the different states. Trying to get rid of my papers here. There are swing states, which means sometimes they go Republican, sometimes they go Democrat, and they swing back and forth with the number of electoral votes that are going in as they're counting and all that. Okay, for 2024, here are the states, 7 of them, that are the most important swing states for the 2024 presidential election. The swing states are Arizona. It has 11 electoral votes. Now, one of the big things they're concerned about is the border, people coming into Arizona over the border, plus the economy. Everybody's worried about the economy. So, okay, keep track here. They have 11 votes in the Electoral College. So these are being watched very carefully, and especially on election night. Georgia has 16 electoral votes. There has not been a Republican elected since after Bill Clinton was out of office. That's a long time ago. So we'll have to wait and see. They have 16 electoral votes. That's the most anybody has, except for Pennsylvania. That's a lot. It says 2020 marked the first time a Democratic presidential candidate had won the Peach State since Bill Clinton in 1992. 2020. So they switched around. Well, we'll have to see what happens because they have an awful lot of crime and they've had the hurricane effect and all sorts of things there. So they're up for 16 votes. The next one is Michigan. Michigan has 15 electoral votes. Well, it could go either way. The economy has hit them hard. But the unions that the Democrats thought that they would be endorsed by haven't done that. One of the largest ones has endorsed Trump. So this will be a very interesting election. And of course, depending on which channel of news or cable news that you watch, you'll see that some people are really thrilled with Trump and his policies, and yet there are some that are still thrilled with Kamala. So watch Michigan for those 15 electoral votes. Nevada, although it's not on the border, has an interesting population. It's very diversified. I lived in Nevada in the 70s in Incline Village by Lake Tahoe, on Lake Tahoe. And at that time, it had a Republican governor. So Nevada also has a lot of people that work in the casinos and restaurants, the entertainment fields there. And an interesting thing to me about them, with their 6 electoral votes, is Trump said no taxes on tips. And that is a huge part of the income of people in Nevada. So let's watch that one closely to see clearly how they will vote. And of course, I would like to see it turn red. North Carolina has 16 votes. Now, here's the problem with North Carolina. It was hit very, very hard with the hurricanes. I meant to look up something about money that Trump had sent out of his personal purse to North Carolina. He's done more for this disaster than FEMA could ever hope to do. The number one thing was he got them back some communication. They were without communication, as well as electricity, clean water, food, everything. Their homes were totally destroyed. They can't even be repaired. And it's just horrible. And that's where some people are still missing, up in the mountains and all. So he did them such a favor when he was there in the disaster area looking at it. And may I remind you that Trump was there before Biden or Kamala. He got Elon Musk on the phone. And he said, look, they don't have any way to communicate. Can you help us? And before the conversation was over on the phone, there was Elon with his things flying over Starlink or whatever it's called. I always get the name wrong. But there they were, back with communication. What did those two do? As far as that goes, what did FEMA do? That's another one. Mayorkas is in charge of that. What did he do? It took them far too long to get there. Okay, North Carolina, what are you going to do with those 16 electoral votes? How are you going to vote? Red or blue? Put it in the red column. Okay, now a state that's very close to my heart is Pennsylvania. It's where I met my husband, where my business, the majority of my business was conducted in Pennsylvania, my biggest client. And they have 19 votes. 19 votes. That's the most that we're talking about today. 19 votes. The other ones that have more could be blue or red. Now you'd have to look at the map because some states are not going to be swing states and change. So here you have Pennsylvania, and clearly the most important thing to Pennsylvania residents is what they are going to do with the gas and oil situation. Natural gas, pipelines, fracking. You know, I was once involved with the natural gas business. I was president of a funding portion of Texas Keystone. And I learned a lot about the fracking and the wells and all. It's one of the cleanest things you can do is put these wells in, and people make money off of it because they lease the land from the landowner. They're unobtrusive, they're clean. Natural gas is a very clean commodity, and it's all been taken away. It's another thing that happened to Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. When they got rid of the steel, a lot of people lost jobs. So here we are looking at Pennsylvania with their 19 electoral votes. And we've got Fetterman there, who is a Democrat in a seat that he had a little breakdown and got himself treatment and help with his little problem that he had. and he seems to be fine now. I don't agree with his politics, but he certainly is on the rise, and he's doing what he can in Pennsylvania, and he does not agree with everything that the Democrats are doing. Now, there's a very closely held Senate seat up for Pennsylvania, and that's going to help determine if those 19 electoral votes are going to go to Trump or Kamala, the red or the blue. So you want to watch that one on voting night, on election night. And the last one is Wisconsin. It has 10 votes. So that's a part of the Rust Belt area, like Pittsburgh and Michigan and all, that lost so many jobs when the different things for powering plants, manufacturing, and all of that, they went down. It's been a battleground state for a long time for those 10 votes. And Trump scored a victory in 2016. We'll see what happens now. So we'll see what happens in Wisconsin. So those are the swing states, and you want to watch those on the night of the election, because they may very well tell you who wins. Okay, so we already talked about the cover-up of Biden's cognitive collapse. And now let's talk a little bit, excuse me with my notes, there's so much in a political campaign, hard to keep it all straight. Okay, what do you think is Harris's view on the economy? She said her day one priority is the economy, and she's trying to reduce food and housing costs for working families on day one. Okay. Trump has promised he'd end inflation and make America affordable again, lower interest rates, and deporting undocumented immigrants will ease the pressure on housing. Okay. But first of all, Trump can't lower the interest rate. He can start working on it. He can do things like no more tipping when he gets his people lined up and they can vote on that. I don't think that Kamala can promise she'll get rid of grocery gouging, price gouging, because she also is not in charge of that. So everybody has these big wishes for what is happening and what they can do, but it takes our whole government and different sections of the government, legislative, judicial, and executive, to get these things done. And day one, you don't normally go into an office like Biden did and tear up every single thing the last president did. If you recall, when Biden went into the Oval Office, he had a stack of papers that was close to 2 feet, folded it, which I doubt had anything in it except a blank page. And he just signed it and said he was getting rid of all these things that Trump had done with an executive order. Who knows? He tells you all the time what he did, that he got rid of what Trump did. Kamala has made abortion one of the top priorities in her campaign, and she continues to advocate for that. Trump has stumbled around and hasn't been able to really come out on a strong basis for it because he wants to be consistent, but he truly thinks this should be up to a woman's, her body, her decision. But that doesn't make everybody in the country happy. So this is a contentious subject. Harris would let anybody have an abortion up into any stage of the pregnancy. So it's a red hot subject. Let's see what they're going to talk about and do in the next 18 days, something like that. Of course, immigration. Now, come on, Kamala, you haven't done anything for it. You were the czar of the border czar. Now you deny you ever were. You never went down there. Nobody wants to talk to you about it. All you could think of was these border agents were whipping the immigrants and the horses of the Border Patrol. Come on. Are you that ignorant that you don't know that they're using that whip to guide their horses so they're not trampling the immigrants and everybody? I mean, I have to say, really bad. So the Democrats have outraised the Republicans because of these billionaires in the entertainment industry and tech industries and those kind of things. So all of this has gone into supposedly helping our country, but it's really gone into the election. The cost of this border is phenomenal, and I don't know how they're going to go through with anything that they're doing. And it's increased so much since Biden Harris were in power. And yet she says she could do something when she's president, but she never visited the border when she was border czar, and she says she never was a border czar. Well, there were plenty of times when even Biden said she was the border czar because he named her that. She doesn't care about that. She cares about the votes, that she's trying to give them driver's licenses, money, credit cards that are loaded up with money, giving them hotel rooms in some of the nicest hotels in New York, like the Roosevelt. It's just unbelievable. So, you know what Trump will do. He'll continue and finally build the rest of the wall because it's down in places where people can sneak across easier than they can where they're sneaking through now, where they have to cut some of the barbed wire and things like that. The people coming across, they're not all criminals. Some of them are trying to seek asylum in a good way, but they wouldn't be doing it in a good way unless they filed their papers. Coming across illegally is not the answer. And giving them driver's license where they can go show it to a registration to vote place. Give me a break. None of them should be allowed to vote, but that's how the Dems are packing their list of voters. So that really, really is frightening to me. Because no matter what Kamala says, there are many hardened criminals and even some on the terrorist list. There are ones that have come across and murdered, raped, mutilated so many of the people here. And that's to say nothing about the child trafficking and the female trafficking, sex trafficking that has gone on. You know it's true because cameramen have stood far back with their long ones and seeing the panties that these horrible people have hung on the different trees around the border, where they have notched one up on their gun, so to speak. I had a housekeeper who was given amnesty. Um, I believe it was President Reagan, and I sponsored her for citizenship. She was my housekeeper for many years. And when I was working full time and I had to get into the office for a meeting that was happening on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, she would come in early and fix breakfast for me and my children so that we could have breakfast together and I could get out of the house and get to my business. So I went with her when she was getting her citizenship. And I applauded and I hugged her and I kissed her and I gave her a gift. And she worked for me a couple more years. And then I married my husband and I was moving to Pittsburgh. And while I was gone and not in the house all the time, she began stealing. It broke my heart. Of course, I had to let her go. And I sat her down and told her this was not how she was going to live in the United States and take advantage of people and do things that weren't legal. So I hope she straightened out her life, and I just loved her to pieces. And don't say, well, maybe I didn't pay her a fair wage, because I sure as heck did. I paid her more than she'd ever made before by anybody else she'd ever worked for. And I took her to the doctor. I did all sorts of things for her, and I was very disappointed in how it ended. So I also want to say I had this discussion with my daughter over the weekend because she grew up with housekeepers. She grew up with not a silver spoon in her mouth, but we were well off because we worked hard. And it's sad to find out that people turn to bad things in their life. But I'm not against immigration. I'm for the dreamers. And if you don't know what a dreamer is, they're the kids that came over when they were maybe 1 or 2 years old. Their parents came across the river, the Rio Grande, and came into the United States. And many of them went into the Central Valley and all and took care of all of the food and produce growing in California that all of you like to eat across the country. And these kids went to school here. Some of them, when they got older, they would work in the fields. But these ranchers took care of them. And some of these people bought houses that they would live in when they were here working the fields and getting paid. And they would take their money back to Mexico. These are lovely, lovely people. And their children that are now in their 20s, 30s, and older, this is their home in the United States. They went to school here. They grew up here. They worked here. They went to university here because their parents put the money together from hard work to send them. I don't want them being thrown out of this country. I want them to be citizens. And I don't know what the Republicans are doing on this because they haven't even discussed it. And I want it discussed. And I want the dreamers to be able to become United States citizens. That's my feeling about this. So Harris vows to support the Ukraine for as long as it takes. What the heck does that mean? Well, I think it means, I don't know. I don't know what it means because I don't know where all the money's going to. That happened during the Obama era too, when money was going out to places like Saudi Arabia or Iran. someplace on pilots in airplanes. Oh, those Democrats love these flights in the middle of the night, don't they? For people or money. I think Trump does not want to become an isolationist like some of the Democrats are trying to say. I think he wants us to be the country we were, that everybody looked up to and everybody looked to for help and guidance. And they're not going to look up to somebody whose father was a Marxist, who has such left leanings. She is the most leftist person ever running in the United States, except maybe some of these crazy people that try to run for president, and they're gone. So I don't think, in my opinion, that Kamala is the right person. I haven't heard her say anything about health care or prescription drugs, and maybe I just missed it. I know insulin went down. I don't remember whose political term it was under, but I haven't seen too many other things. Co-pays, I don't even know why insurance companies tell you that they will pay for your prescriptions, because I hear people talking next to me at the pharmacy when we're picking up a little thyroid medication or something, and they're paying $150 to $300 to $1,000 for co-pays on medical prescriptions. What the heck is that? Kudos to Mark Cuban for starting his pharmacy. This has to be taken care of. She says that she would cap, she being Harris, says she'd cap insulin at $35. It's so expensive, but I don't think she'll do that, to tell you the truth. I quite frankly don't think she's going to do anything she says. I think they're empty promises. I also think that she doesn't care about the gangs in towns. They say that there aren't any. They're coming across. The cartels are sending them here across the border. I don't know. I'm very worried about crime. And I don't even want to discuss guns. When somebody says, like Kamala, I have a gun. And what would you do if somebody came around your house and came in, just open the door? I'd shoot him. I'd shoot him. I don't think this is what a vice president should be saying, and certainly not a president. You have security. You can get him arrested. I'm not saying never shoot somebody that comes in your house. You have the right to, but look what happened to those people that were trying to protect their property in the South. I can't remember where it was. And they took their guns out there. They wanted people to get off their lawn, not come up to the door. They ended up in a lawsuit. They ended up in jail. Well, this is craziness. So get out there and listen to the interviews they're having. I don't know if Harris will have any more interviews after her disastrous Bret Baier interview. I will say, while we were in the Santa Barbara area with our grandkids over the weekend, I missed what would have been my second Trump rally. He was here in our blue state of California, and he was in the Coachella Valley. You know, Coachella, where they have the rock festival and all that, had over 100,000 people. So wouldn't it be great if California turned red? That's what I'm leaving you today. It may not be your opinion. It may not be what you want to see. And that's what makes our country great. You have the freedom to make up your own mind and vote for the person you would like to see in the office. So for me, It's Trump all the way. I'm looking forward to going back 4 years to when things were a little more stable. We weren't in any wars and things were going well. All right. Thank you for joining me. We'll probably do another show on the election next week. Keep your news on and see what's going on. Everything is just kind of crazy. So remember, cherish yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today. Thanks for joining me.